Hi, this is Damien Marie AtHope, and I am an axiological atheist, which can simply be understood as a value theory or a value science atheist. And today, I have a great guest, a great friend. His name is Chris Mallard, and he has the show The Daily Atheist, which if you haven't checked it out, man, you need to. The content is quality. The thoughtful endeavors that are going on are just fabulous. So could you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became an atheist?
Hello. Okay. I'm Chris Mallard. I have the Daily Atheist show on YouTube. I started out as a Christian. I was a very loosely raised Christian back in the day. You know, I wasn't, to be honest, I wasn't properly indoctrinated. You know, my mom didn't go, my parents didn't go really strict on it. So whenever the bounds of religion started to break loose, it wasn't that hard for me. But what I consider myself to be an agnostic atheist, to be honest. If we speak honestly, I cannot say there is nothing. I can't intellectually, respectfully say there's nothing. But I can say I don't believe the claims of any Bible or Jesus. I am absolutely atheist against those kind of creatures that they talk about. But as far as, you know, something bigger than us, I can't say that. So I consider myself an agnostic atheist.
Okay. Could you explain really quick what for people that may not know what you think that means?
Well, what I think that means, agnostic means, you know, you're not sure. There might be, there might not be. You're kind of on the fence. Atheist means you don't believe, right? So as an agnostic atheist, really I'm an agnostic, but I lean to the atheist side. Okay. You know, some people just call us atheists, but can you really say you know 100%? Only when you know 100% are you fully an atheist, and you're not agnostic.
Well, I would like to comment on that, because to me, in philosophy, there is no such thing as a percentage of knowledge. You either have in other words, what I'm saying is there's, in a sense, epistemically certain and then psychological certainty. Psychological certainty has percentages, but in the philosophy and in science, your own psychological or faith or belief is really irrelevant. In other words, like a scientist may epistemically, which is the knowledge source, may epistemically have reason to believe or not believe something. But they still may have personal doubt. So they may have all the, reason high enough to believe a scientific theory, but yet still doubt. Or there's a possibility, the general public generally, they have 100% certainty, but no epistemic evidence or epistemic certainty to back it up. So for me personally, I don't even use the word agnostic. I find it to be kind of like a pseudo-philosophy, because it's breaking up, because philosophy doesn't break up knowledge and belief that way. Because I'm just saying, because in philosophy, when you believe something, even if you say you know it to be true because you believe something that is true. It doesn't really matter. But so...
So I am an atheist.
Right. Yeah. Well, no, yeah, no, I understand what you were saying. I'm just saying what I hear personally is that you're psychologically uncertain, which is normal. I mean, that's not unheard of.
Well, no, see, that's the whole deal. And pardon me if the confusion is mine, if I cause the confusion. When I first started looking in on the atheist community about a year and a half ago, the first thing I did was walk into these two atheists arguing over what's an atheist and what's an agnostic.
Right.
And I got the impression that it was probably safest for me to not claim to be a full atheist. Because the way it is, so you absolutely know. Well, no, okay. Well, if I don't know for absolutely, then that makes me agnostic. But saying I'm the daily agnostic is not nearly as catchy as the daily atheist. So to avoid the fight, I went with agnostic atheist.
But think of it this way, and I wasn't trying to say that people can't say they're agnostic. I'm just saying, for me, if you understand how philosophy breaks up belief, knowledge, ideas, regular philosophers don't generally hold agnostic as being something that should be used in a sense. Because think of this, does a scientist know that the world exists, or are we in a simulation? So it still goes back to, in a sense, like solipsism, that you don't know your own mind. So in a sense, they would say that nothing is known. Everything is certainly supported of what we can think we know. But I just find that to be like obtruse or unnecessary. But like I said, I just wanted to clarify my thoughts. Not that you can't or anyone else can't hold, agnostic. I always say I'm anti-agnostic, the concept, because I just feel like how it's presented, I don't like how it's defended because it doesn't sound like it's matching actual how philosophy thinks of ideas. But generally, the general public doesn't really care what philosophy thinks. So, hey, maybe everyone's okay.
Well, to be honest, normally I usually just kind of throw it in there to avoid the argument.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to argue. I'm just clarifying how I see that.
Oh, no, well, I've never had anybody come at me the other way. Normally, if I say I'm an atheist, they're like, what do you mean you're an atheist? You mean you're an agnostic? Okay, it's fine. I'm an freaking agnostic. Yeah. Whatever you want to call me. I don't believe this crap.
Yeah.
But whenever your deal was that I had some kind of doubt. No. I have no doubt about a supreme being. I don't believe none of those things. There's no tinkling in my mind.
Right.
So I'm just kind of just clarifying.
Yeah, so my clarification is every God offered, the term God is a label. It's not like a name. So it's a label of authority, and it's usually a supernatural authority. Anything supernatural is not evident in reality, so there's no reason to even... I'm 100% sure there is no evidence in reality that shows a supernatural anything. So anything you're already talking about is either not evident in reality, or you're saying it has to be in a non-reality that I have no evidence there is a non-reality. So I say that there's no reason at all, I'm 100% sure of that, to any claim of any kind of God, since every God requires supernatural, and there's nothing. But I mean, depending on how people want to say it, they can break it down different ways. But so you became an atheist for what reason? Like, how did you go from being a theist to becoming the fabulous person you are today?
Yeah, you're amazing, super good. Well, all right. So when I was young, as I said, I wasn't indoctrinated correctly. So, prayer time, anytime there was prayers or praying or church going on, I'd be the guy looking around to see who else is looking around. And if they wanted to worship and hold hands or they wanted to get all touchy-feely, one time I was with a group of people, friends, family, who wanted to speak in tongues. Anything like that, it made me uncomfortable. It was always, this is not right. This is, and oftentimes, like I went to my best friend's house and they had this Bible study come over, and I was like 20 something, I don't remember, and that's where I learned the word secular. I didn't even know what the word secular meant, but I was here at this thing, and they were all sitting around praying, and I kept waiting for somebody going, ha, we're just kidding. This is just a game. We're just picking on you, but they weren't. They really believed this, So the older I got, the further I got away from it. I believed, but I had my doubts and it felt weird. And then really one of the things as an experience in the church where I had a King James Bible and my girlfriend had a NIV Bible, and in hers it said, and we subdued the city, and they went on. But my Bible said they murdered, death, killed everybody, and they enslaved the little girls. And I was like, wait, what the heck? So that was a chink in the armor of religion. And then one day I was sitting there, Jerry Falwell had just died, and CNN was going to have the amazing Chris Hitchens on their show. This atheist is going to come on, and he's going to talk about the pastor, this world famous pastor. And I was like, oh my God, he's going to hell. He's going to hell right now. And so he came on the show, and Anderson Cooper asked him what he thought of Jerry Falwell. He said that he thought the guy should be standing on a street corner selling pencils from a cup. And I just died. I knew this guy. This was my spirit animal, and that was one of the beginnings. That kind of got me to become an atheist. That got me on the edge. What got me to becoming like an activist or an outspoken I don't want to be an in your face, but a contrary atheist, was I had a friend who, while I was down in Texas becoming an atheist, he was getting real into religion here. And whenever I came back to visit with him, I'd drive up on the weekends, and he couldn't hang out with me on Saturday nights because him and his family were downtown. His wife and them were downtown 10 o'clock to 2 in the morning, Friday and Saturday nights. I think may have been just Saturday nights, holding signs, street preaching to drunks on the street. And that's how far into it he'd gotten. And so I came up here and I debated with him and some of his friends on the street. And of course, I didn't know nothing at the time. I just knew I didn't believe. And I'd heard some things, and they were getting at me like, why do you want to take In God We Trust off the Bible or off our money? I'm like, well, I don't really. It doesn't really matter. And I was like, well, wait a second. But it does matter if it's not your God. Then, so that kind of got me that line of thinking. Same thing with one nation under God in the thing at school, having them say that at school.
The pledge.
They're like, what do you care? And I'm like, because what if it said one nation under Allah, or one nation under Buddha, or one nation under anybody? You'd be flying off the handle, all raging mad. This notion, and then I started hearing things because I'm from Texas, right? And I hear things like they have these prayers, prayer times. The team captain of a football team will go over to the goalpost before the game and lead the team in prayer. That's fine. As to have no, you can't really have no problem with those kinds of expressions. The problem comes when the team captain won't pick the little atheist kid or the little Muslim kid because they didn't come and join in the prayer. These things just escaped me. When as a kid, I was one of the ones who wouldn't have gone to be in the prayer. I probably would have gone to the goalpost and kind of, knelt my head or something, but I wasn't part of it. But I can now, as an outsider, see how they would treat an outsider, or how they could mistreat an outsider. So those things got me to where that got me to writing the book back in 2013.
Okay, you tell us a little bit about your book?
Oh yeah. It's called Anti-theist. I go. There's an introduction, and then each chapter is based on certain topics. I think chapter 3 is women. I think chapter 6 is Satan. Chapter 7 is, this. And it kind of each one covers why religion is harmful, what people have done with religion, everything from, Jesus could have been nothing more than Penn and Teller.
Right.
Coming in and doing like a little magic show to trick the folk and move on. And he got, could have been nothing more than that. And I kind of go over things like that throughout the books.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
So where can it be gotten?
Oh, yeah, Amazon. I've got it on Amazon. It's called Anti-theist by Chris Mallard. Okay,
great. So how is it done? Have you got some people buying it and talking about it? Or?
Well, I published it back in 2013, and when I published it, I don't know if anybody out there has self-published a book or anything. First time, you just think you're going to lay it out there and just the world is going to, and they come. You've built it and now they come. I threw it out there and I got like a sale in 3 days. I did on this little virtual book tour. I did a few little sales. I didn't have any kind of community and name. I didn't have anything. Now I've got the Daily Atheist morning show. I've got, Chris Mallard. I dropped the scripted videos, the Evil God Monster of Abraham series. I've got the History Voyagers with my buddy, Damien Marie AtHope. So in the future, when I drop a book, there'll be more noticed, or when I redrop this one. Matter of fact, I've got plans on reworking it and continuing on it. But, I got to be honest, this Evil God Monster of Abraham series, my latest series, has been so much fun that it's hard to, when I do get the time to write, it's hard to stop and go work on those other things because I want to work on this.
I understand. That's how I feel with my book. Once I get started, I might do it for 15 hours.
Oh, yeah. But your book is going to be like 500 pages.
Yeah, true. And probably about
melting.
5,000 or 4,000, references.
Yeah. Right. Prepare for your eyes to bleed. There's just a lot of information. You got a lot to say. My next book, I'm learning. In this modern age, it's not an all or nothing. There's a new way of doing things, and so I'm trying to pick up on a little bit of that. So, by that notion, for those of you who are watching who don't know, I'm doing a series. It's called The Evil God Monster of Abraham, and I'm going through the Bible chapter by chapter. Elucidating.
Yeah.
Highlighting how the monster of the Bible is just this vicious creature. And the reason why I'm doing this is because in my 2013 book, I referred to the God of Abraham as the evil God monster of Abraham, and I referred to the Bible as the book of death. And this is like a justification of that. Anyway, so I'm almost to my 10th episode.
Wonderful.
And I script out every episode. Every episode is 3 to 4 pages worth of script. And then, of course, I've got some images, usually funny memes that I drop in there for some humor. And so what I'm going to do, once I've got the 10th video, I've dropped my 10th video, I'm going to take those 10 scripts and the memes associated with them, put them in a digital book, and put them available to sell for like $1, $2.
Cool.
Yeah, just to add content. And, you continue over time adding this content. These are also going up on my podcast. I've got a podcast over at Podbean. You can pick it up at, iTunes or wherever you find podcasts.
And what is it under? The Daily Atheist? Or
The Daily Atheist, yeah. The Daily Atheist. So, and with the Daily Atheist, also I've got over there on my podcast, currently I've got the Evil God Monster of Abraham, through episode 8, but I've got the Quickie with the Skeptic episodes where I talk about woo, like people using crap instead of real medicine and watching their kids die. I've got a series over there on that. I want to put those on the podcast as well. The Daily Atheist morning show. Matter of fact, I want to put the last couple of months of the Daily Atheist morning show up there on the podcast, and then going forward, record them straight to the podcast live. I just haven't got all that done yet, but I'm getting that direction.
Okay, sounds great. And it sounds like you have a real desire to do activism in the community, which I think is needed. Yeah.
Well, there's that too, and I'm also talking about possibly becoming a representative of the American Atheist. I've got here on my list, if you're a man of lists, I'm sure. On my list, I've got to call Ron with Freedom from Religion Foundation here in Albuquerque so I can begin developing relationships with them. I want to start using the platform I'm developing as the Daily Atheist Morning Show. For example, I wanted to develop a relationship with a pet shelter, a non-kill shelter here in Albuquerque.
Wonderful.
So at the end of the show, I can shill their stuff. I'd like my guests in the future as they come on to bring with them some pet. Do they have a pet thing? Do they have something they want to shout out to? Because animals are wonderful. I believe they're, so that kind of as well. Tack that on there.
Well, yeah, I think it's a very, humanist idea to want to do more than just not believe things, but to support what we do believe.
Yeah, to help whoever and however. Yeah, that's true. So helping with the American Atheist, and then there's the causes that go out with that. Also, it's more to it than just helping other atheists. There's also defending ourselves. Mm-hmm. Because people don't realize, I don't mean to seem so militaristic about it, but we're under attack throughout our country by this. There's this Blitz Watch or Operation Blitz or something. And they've got these political groups trying to push these harmful religious laws through in various states where they don't think anybody's watching, nobody's paying attention. And in a lot of cases, they're right. And so now in several states, they're having to use taxpayer money to go put In God We Trust on schools and other buildings because nobody was watching. And these religious nutbags, pardon the expression, that's from my channel, went through and pushed these laws through. So if you get with American Atheist or the Center for Free Thought, Center for Equality, cfequality.org. Get with those people because they'll let you know about these policies that these people are going through. And we as atheists can go down there and try to stop them at the state level when they're trying to run. I've even volunteered. I said, hey, even if you don't take me as a member or as that specific position, let me know when you need me to go stand in here in New Mexico because I don't want those things. I don't have any kids in school, but I don't want to have kids oppressed in school in the name of this or because of that or any of the other things. Kentucky's got a denial of health care or denial of service thing that they're trying to vote on now to where if you're a medical professional, you can deny someone care on religious grounds. So my big argument is, so an EMT, a couple of EMTs, and they're both Christian, and they roll up on a car accident, and it's a couple of gay people, and they can tell because they've got gay written all over them, or whatever. Are these guys going to be in their law, backed by the law to say, I cannot help this person, and have to call somebody else and watch them die while we wait for non-Christian medical people to come along? Is that where we're going? Yeah. So it's not just about helping other atheists, it's also about protecting ourselves.
Oh, yeah, I totally understand. In fact, I have a hat that says atheist on it, but it doesn't say anything else, and it's written in a really creative way with gemstones, whatever, because I like bling. And yeah. I wore it to the doctor's office because I have a foot that has nerve damage. And I had a doctor's office when they were trying to figure out exactly what's wrong with it to figure out what to fix. I was willing to cut it off if it took that. because I don't like living like, can't walk. And because it got damaged from, a truck accident and other previous accidents, the same foot, it just got abused. But the doctor, when I went in, with the hat that said atheist one time, because he already knew me. But then when I wore that hat, he's like, oh, I probably shouldn't do this. But how can you defend atheism? And I was like, you might not want to get started in this because this is what I do as professional. I am a professional on the street activist and I've been working on this for years. I don't really think you want to get this started in the doctor's office. Right. But he tried and he got shown to be in error, and then he goes like, oh yeah, I guess I shouldn't have done that, I'm not really an apologist or whatever. I'm thinking, yeah, it wouldn't make a difference. I still would have showed you the error of your thinking, apologist or not. But he started treating me different after that. He started like not wanting to help me as much. Oh, you're fine. You just need to. And I'm like, I'm not fine. I am absolutely not fine. Did
he offer to pray over it for you?
That was then. No, he just started. He started like helping us, but you can tell when someone just doesn't give a shit, or seems like they care less. And I found that to be just nonsense. So I dropped out, went to a different hospital, one that was run by the college, because when it's run by the college, generally they have a different attitude. Like this one was at a religious hospital. Yeah. Because it was part of, they're all over the place, and it's part of my,
they're everywhere.
My medical coverage. So I was like, why not go to a good place? It just happens to be religious. So I don't care. But they cared. So it seemed like, because I don't have 100% proof of what is in his mind, but I know how it was treated before and after. And I'm telling you, afterwards, it was like, who gives a shit? Well, I need help. Yeah, who cares? A lot of people need help, I mean, but then the other doctor who was also religious, I told him, I said, I feel like I was, treated kind of bigotedly before, because of being an atheist. And I wore the hat every time I went into that place because I wanted to. Now, now you're making me pissed off. That, how dare you not serve me? I mean, how many Christians wear a cross like everywhere they go? Do they ever take it off worried that if they're Christian, they won't get medical care? I mean, it kind of like made me more want to be an activist even harder. Like, oh, okay. So is that how it is? So, but that guy ended up, going, oh yeah, we need surgery right now. Like, I was like, what, one time or something? Or, saw him, surgery, and then I was already better. I mean, it was like, this is how it should be, but so just to bring up a point that I have a personal reference that, that nonsense. So we have to fight, because I would never think of caring if I was helping somebody what their religious preference was. I mean,
right. That's crazy.
I don't go, I'm only helping atheists. That's it.
Yeah. So I know, right? I know. And where does it stop? For those other people, is it only certain Christians? So now we've rolled up on the accident. They're like, "Hello, sir. Are you a Catholic? No. Okay. All right. Sorry. This guy's Protestant. We can't help it." Where does it end? Or
you're Jehovah's Witness, and I consider you to be an occult, so I'm not going to help you because to me you're not even a Christian. Right. So that to me is the real point, that what they have going on, where you can choose your thing. I mean, what if they're Muslim? So like you said, are they going to, but even Christian, there's even, Mormons. What if it's a Mormon? So are they a Christian? I mean, so are you going to not help them? I mean, it's absolutely, to me, unethical.
Where does the line get drawn in that scenario? Well, that person's gay, or that person's anything other than what I consider normal. I can just wash my hands of it by saying it's against my religion. That's just ridiculous. And whenever you really consider, like you said, the religious hospitals are freaking everywhere. They're everywhere.
They're trying to.
They're buying it up.
Yeah.
They're
buying them. A lot of them are teaching hospitals too, which is understandable. I mean, they've got I'm not knocking them for being a hospital, but just imagine if those people just started turning people away and doing the things because, it's unfortunate. And they would. Well, I have no doubt they would.
Well, like I said, my own personal experience, the fact that I needed surgery, I asked for surgery, and he said no.
Yeah.
And then I go to the other guy. He sees me like one time and goes, "Man, you need surgery." I'm like, "No kidding."
Yeah. Usually when people ask me what I do and it comes to this, I always have to pause and gauge who I'm talking to before I tell them what I do. This is the only job I've ever had that. Yeah, I've never had to, when somebody asked me what I did, I was like, "Oh, I'm an IT guy." I never had to pause and worried about that. But with this, I do. You know?
And you shouldn't. Seriously.
We really shouldn't.
I mean, the fact that you believe in religion and I just don't, I mean, I don't understand why that means that you should be treating me different.
Right. That's right. That's right. Well, I am not, how we hear this notion that people are all equal? People are not equal.
No.
We're all different. We're all beautiful and unique. We are not equal in many different ways. Will Chamberlain is not equal to, what was his name? Gary Coleman. They are not equal. They are better in different ways from each other. What I do believe is that those people deserve equal rights and equal treatment. Right. And they have, those kind of things. But to go around, because they're two completely separate things to think we're all equal and that we deserve equal rights. We are not equal. We are different. We have different abilities, different needs.
Well, that's why I explain it. Equal is a behavior that all deserve. So to me, I don't even see it as like, when someone says equal, I say equal, I mean equal as a behavior, how we interact with others.
Right. Yeah. So that's
where the other one you're talking about is almost like you're value judging the human worth. And I feel that that's a different issue that shouldn't be.
That's right.
Because that's more like a job interview. Are you suited for this job? Well, then you do need to care about what particular, assets you have. But
right. That's why
how you treat people.
Neither Will Chamberlain nor Gary Coleman was better than the other. I said they were both beautiful one's better for getting things out from under a table, one's better at dunking basketballs. I'm not trying to insult anybody.
Right.
I'm using examples here, but that's kind of the deal. They both deserve the same thing. They both deserve the same education opportunities, the work opportunities, the same rate of pay, whether they're white or black or male or female. That's how I believe. Everybody deserves to be treated equally.
And I think that goes for rich or poor, or for one class or another class, or for one sexuality or another sexuality, or one gender or another gender. I think in general, like I said, for me, equals a behavior. So it's not positional to the person, just that all humans to me are dignity beings, and they all deserve to be treated, with an equal behavior of care and respect.
Absolutely. Totally. I completely agree. Yeah. Of course, except, see, I was going to make jokes.
Well, you can make a joke, but I would say that to me,
when you mock people like racists by making a joke as if you were on their side, that's
I don't do that. I just tell them I find that not people can joke, but to me, I try to just stick with the fact of that there's still a being of dignity, but how they are treating their own character is a level of disrespect. Because I don't feel that someone being a racist is in a sense just defaming another race. They're actually defaming themselves, not their race, but their own character. Yeah. They are saying, I don't care about my character. My character is lowly and deserves.
In your eyes.
Well,
see, my character in the eyes of other white supremacists is what I care about. I don't care about not me, obviously. But speaking as one of those people, they don't care about your opinion, or my opinion or somebody else's opinion. We're to be clear, we're just talking about specifically racist for this specific observation. But they don't care. They're worried about their own reputation amongst the other people who hate the same way that they hate.
Right, and like I said, to me though, that's actually not their character. That is, in a sense, their social character. That's what they think towards their actual. Like what I mean is ethically, it's not defendable to be a racist ethically. So their character is really built on ethics. They're just not caring because they have this other social capital, that they're loving. But they wouldn't say maybe even themselves that being racist is a good thing or a ethically positive thing. They would just say, "Who cares? I do it because it's right for me." But
I like ethics.
but so I'm saying their ethical character is lowly. It's degraded. It's unworthy. It's disrespectful to even themselves. They're actually violating their own humanity. And so to me, I find that is the real issue.
Yeah. And, one of those things, when tribalism served us well, it had its purposes, it had its time. But we need to get beyond that as a civilization and go forward. And that's kind of how I see those things. That's a big part of tribalism.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, sometimes it gets to the point where you're taking care of your own, and that's great. But then in taking care of your own, you hurt the whole.
Yeah.
That's not great.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Well, I think that, most people would acknowledge that they take care of their children before children in other countries. But it's certainly not to say that other countries' children don't have some value or lots of value. It's just that, it is ethical for us to care for the ones that were, under our care. But I do think that we have, a global obligation to care about others because we're one human race.
Yeah, well, and also this notion that to vilify somebody like that, so oftentimes somebody on the other side who is more about hate will be against, hey, how can you justify not caring as much for that person far away as you do for your child? So now they're trying to put you into a box where you're a bad person for not, well, obviously it's just human nature that you're going to take care of your own first. But where we make the difference is that we want to care about that other child somewhere else.
Right.
And in my view, the other, I want to say political spectrum, the other side of, there's love and hate, right? So the side that propagates hate doesn't care about that child. They care only about this child, so.
Yeah.
Up to a degree.
Yeah. And I think that's a real blind, spot in their ethics. Understanding, but like I said, to me, I'm an axiologist, so I see things as radiating out. Like your most care is your closest family, then your next family, then your friends, then your social networks, then your city, your town, your country, the world. So there's a radiating out of axiological value. The difference, like people say, well, what about a policeman? Well, a policeman has just moved their personal to the community, and say the military moves the personal to the country. Yeah. So the axiology is not different. It's just that you've expanded what you are considering I would die for or I protect at all costs. Right.
It sounds very humanist.
Yeah. Oh, axiological thinking is very humanist because the goal, like axiological atheist, the goal is not atheism. The goal is value judging things, and you value judging the quality of things. And then when you care about the things that actually exist, it's realistic in a sense. By nature, I have to care about the real before I start even entertaining the non-real, because the non-real, in a sense, is not apparent and of need in the here and now. So it's very, in a sense, here and now. In fact, there's a really great book that was written by a Christian who is an axiologist, and he said in there, which I thought was a great statement, he said, ethics is too important to leave it in the hands of philosophy or religion. He said it should be a science under axiology. I'm like, woohoo! And this is a person who's religious. Right. Yeah. But because he gets how more humanistic and accurate, in a sense, morality is once you add axiological thinking. Mm-hmm. We kind of do it naturally anyways, but.
There's also the notion that even religious people understand that religion can be dangerous.
Absolutely. And especially ones that are not their religion. They're real good at telling you what's wrong with every other religion. Somehow they have these blinders. Yeah, I think I see something. I'm not sure.
Yeah. or ignore the bloody guy on the cross behind me.
Or it's like it's funny. Someone who's a Catholic and then follows me, which is interesting. People always are shocked that I have full-on religious people that constantly follow my page. Well, one thing they don't realize is if you look at the whole of what Damien is, it's not just limited to this hardcore atheism. I also talk about kindness and humanism. I also analyze psychology and sexuality, and child rearing and all kinds of stuff. So it's not like it's limited to one thing. And if I've had atheists not like that because they feel like I try to touch everything, and I'm like, I'm just being me. I'm not an atheist because I want to push it. I'm just being me. I'm not being humanist because I just want to push that somehow on people because I like it. I really feel it's a benefit to society. It's just me being me. I talk about kindness because it's just me being me. And but anyway, so I have this Catholic, and I had said that I hate pseudoscience, pseudo-history, and pseudo-morality. And she goes, hate? And I said, I don't see why the word hate bothers you. You have a God that says he hates lying and hates a whole bunch of other things. Here's a verse that says that. No comment. So I think it's good too because sometimes they think that they're educated, but they, like I said, they're seeing their religion with blinders. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, how can you chastise me for using the hate in the context that I am and then try to say, well, that when God does it, though, totally okay. In fact, perfect. 100% perfect.
Well, that makes it okay. Well, again, that if you're going by, anything God says is, moral.
Right.
Then once you learn that God said it, it makes it okay.
Right, which is crazy. A non-morality thing called divine command theory.
Yeah, absolutely.
That whatever the divine command makes it moral. Like the one, there's one preacher who said, probably more than one, but at least one preacher that said, if the Bible supports slavery, then I could support slavery because if God says that slavery is moral, it is. Right. I mean, scary.
My Christian friend recently mentioned that we were talking about that, and he brought that up, and he's like, well, but that's kind of just really equating, because back then that's how it was, and really it's like saying be good to your employer because your employer is also employed by somebody else, and he equated it to employer, and I didn't go into that argument at the time, but because it just wasn't, sometimes it's not the time. It was not the time.
True.
But really, that's not a good analogy. They did have actual pay to servants back then, or various types of servants that were not slaves. And to say slaves obey your master is quite specific.
Well, it even says that a person is allowed to beat their slave almost up to death because they own their slave. As long as they live 3 days and then die, well, then you're not charged anything. Only if
you got to make sure not to knock out any teeth and don't knock out an eye. As long as you stay away from the face area, you're pretty much okay, really.
Right, but but if you do that, it's not like you go to jail. It's just that the slave then can go free. Oh, yeah. How gracious! If you beat them to where they become blind and dumb, you have to let them go. I mean,
see that actually, who does that hurt? Does that hurt you? No, that actually lessens the burden on you.
Right.
Because now you don't have a half-blind slave.
Well, true. Which is
you don't have to drag them along and support them.
But it's not out of ethics. It's not out of a good value system or value theory or axiology. It's simply a horrid way to justify the harming of others. And there's a thing in there that says that you can sell your daughter into sexual slavery. What?
Oh, yeah. Well, it also says that same thing says that if you sell her and then she's returned back to you, you can redeem her. Yeah. It does not explain what that means. Now, in some cases throughout the Bible, to redeem something meant to like offer it up in burnt sacrifice or whatever, to redeem it unto the Lord. So what did that mean by redeem her? Well, they left that kind of open. You could, if you were unsatisfied and she embarrassed you when you gave her away, you could kill her and redeem her.
Well, it says, too, that if the father wants to, he can give her to the son. So it still shows a level of property ownership transfer. She didn't get a choice to go to the one guy, and then now she's being transferred to another person that she also doesn't have choice. I mean, it's absolutely disgusting to me. And I had a Christian sit there and try to challenge me about it. And I told him, you disgust me. Because I asked him, I said, if your daughter, I said, you believe the Bible 100%. If your daughter, was in this, would you sell her into sexual slavery? And he says, if I was poor enough, I would. And I was like, wow, what?
Yeah.
That's like horrid.
Well, whenever you have the book of death leading by example, look at Lot and his daughters.
Yeah.
Lot, just before Lot and his daughters, Abram and his wife were trying to have children. And they could not. It was expressly noted that you didn't have children without the blessing of God. Okay, so without God's blessing, you don't have a child, period. All right, so that means that when Lot's daughters got him drunk in the cave and got pregnant, that was through the blessing of God, because it's established beforehand that God did not. So there's that. Then also the reward in the Old Testament for being good is God will allow you to live a long life, which Lot had already lived by this point, but live a long life, and you become the father of nations.
Yeah,
that's the reward. God is happy with you. That's what you get. So Lot's daughters get him so drunk that he can have sex. Then he has sex and gets them pregnant, and each one of them has a boy who goes on to be the father of nations. It says it right there at the end. So it says the incest between father and daughter is smiled upon by God in the book of Genesis.
Well, yeah, and what's interesting, too, I always tell people about that verse is, do you really believe that two different people had sex only one time and then got pregnant? I mean, there's people that want children that go years sometimes trying to get pregnant. I mean, it is certainly amazing if one person one time can get pregnant off of one time of sex. But two times, I think the story is ad-libbing a little bit, and the real story is it probably was multiple times that they had sex. It wasn't like...
Yeah, well, all right, so in the story it says... Yeah, in the story it said, first of all, going back on your thinking, it wasn't just that they had sex once. Mm-hmm. It's that they got an elderly man. We've already established he was elderly. He'd lived a long life. He was elderly. Matter of fact, he didn't go to the mountains originally when the angels told him to, but he said, I'm too old and weak. I cannot get there. So they get him to this cave eventually. He is so in need, they get him so drunk, he doesn't remember having sex with his own daughters the next day. So elderly, drunk, there's not a lot of get it up kind of action going on in situations like that. And then to, like you said, get it up, perform, and have a child with that first thing. You know what I think happened? I think it was Noah. I think it was Lot. Yeah. Damn it. Excuse me, Job. Who am I talking about here? I'm talking about Lot, right?
Which pseudo-historical figure are you referring to?
Right. I think it was Lot who got his daughters drunk and had sex with them.
More than likely.
More than likely. And I think
because just think today. I mean, just think. So they're both younger. I mean, or do we know exactly how old they are? So I don't know. But if we have a story today, and I tell you that some girl has sex with her father, do you generally go, well, did she, entice him? I mean, generally it's the molestation of the child, not somehow the child is like got it hot and heavy for daddy. I mean.
So for context, these are two girls who were betrothed. They were not married. They did have pending husbands, and they lived in Sodom.
Right.
That's where they lived. So they lived in Sodom, and they were too young to be married and off living. So what, 12?
Right, could be, because
somewhere in that area.
Certainly at a certain young age, they back then. Right. So yes, they were probably prepubescent or whatever. It would be not be unreasonable for it to be that. Yeah, the story just, if you look at stories today, it just does not make much sense.
And it puts them as though they're wishing, their desire is for the things that a man would want.
Yeah.
Whenever you read it's been a day or three since I've read that chapter, but it's actually coming up in my series. But it's been a day or two since I've read it, and it's like they go, well, we're here in this cave, as if it's a death sentence. This is where they're going to be forever. This is where we're here in this cave, and we're not going to see any other men to have babies from. So how are we going to have children to go on and carry on our line if we don't have sex with dad? Where do women ever think about that? That's not really a woman thing in the Bible. It's all about men and their progeny, and they're getting the thing on. So it really sounds more like Abram or Lot got off in the cave, and he's like, well, here's an excuse, right? Got the girls drunk, repeatedly had sex with them over time.
That's
which is more likely on the, Occam's razor.
Yeah, that's what I say. Which makes more sense? I'm not saying that it never could have happened the way it supposedly is said. I'm saying that when we look at what happens today, is that logical? Just like in archaeological record, about 40,000 years ago, there's a massive drop of incest. It goes from like pretty much incest is rather normal, especially in Neanderthals, sort of. But then the early humans, there's some, but then genetically it just drops. And then from then on, from 40,000 years ago, there's this big drop and lessening of it. And I always say that to me, that goes along with about 50,000 years ago. I think totemism started. And totemism is not just the belief in totem objects being created that represent other things, but also clan. It has to do with how clans interact with each other and who can you have sex with and not. That's big. Because there's, not that I'm going to go big into totemism right now, but so totemism ethnographically, or the study of cultures today, basically there's two kinds. There's individual totemism that's kind of more female or male, and then there's individual totemism, opposite. Individual totemism is more male, but it can be female, and then group totemism is generally more female, although it's possible to also be male, but it's generally female. So when it's for the group, it's generally female, and then when it's male, it's generally called individual totemism. But it can vary a little bit because it's so vast and who practices it and where. But it's kind of a general rule. So to me, when you look at how the group behavior, like not interacting incest is more of a group kind of a totemism idea. Because in individual totemism, it's the reason why that it can be different. In individual totemism, unlike group totemism, where you have one theme, like it's almost like a religion where you have only one God, where individual.
We're so far from what we were talking about. I'm not really sure.
Oh, but anyways, I was trying to say like how we can look at behavior now, like the children being molested now, and then how we can inference a reasonable hypothesis for what happened pre-existing. So I'm just saying. In how that's how things we can look at stuff now, how they react, and we can look at behavior. So if I see a big drop in incest, I can inference, well, this may have been one of the deciding influences to why. Because men didn't all of a sudden stop being sexual, or something had to change for there to be this big drop to where you shouldn't do that. Well, if there's no rules, if there's no clan, if there's no group mentality, it would just keep going because there wouldn't be any social thing saying don't do that. So you know that moral systems are coming out. Anyways, I was just trying to say that it's like that. We can look at ethnographically how people are molested or sex today, and like you said, how people drink, and are they generally the most amorous, people that are older. I'm just saying it's the same kind of reference. It's logical hypothesis from what we do know. And then we can inference, we don't know for sure, but it certainly inferences well that someone drunk, older, with younger children, it just doesn't match up. And I don't know, I've been pretty drunk, but generally it's like I didn't do things I wouldn't kind of normally do. In other words, like I didn't go do things with guys. That's not what I'm into. I may have done stuff with women I, wouldn't want to if I was sober, but I didn't become a completely, different person in that context. Even like maybe I'm more attitude or something, but that's just lowering inhibitions, not really changing who I am.
Yeah. Well, and again, who wrote the story? Who writes these stories? They're never written by the women.
No.
Women are possessions. We've already established that, and lowly possessions.
Yeah.
At that, do you want this chair? No, you don't want this chair. I'll just give it to my son.
Yeah.
That's how they treat them. So these women were writing these kind. No, it's clear. And whenever you consider things like where was Lot? Right. Lot was in Sodom, and as a matter of fact, that's part of what we're talking about. A lot of people don't realize that God chose Noah and his family because they were righteous, and they were righteous in the eyes of the Lord. So these are the chosen people of God. And so they survived the flood, and then Noah has 3 children. Ham is the 3rd child. Ham has a son named Canaan. Canaan goes on to be the father of the Canaanites.
Right.
Japheth, and Shem are the other children. So Shem goes on to be, he's the patriarch of the line of Moses. So Moses, the descendant of Noah, has to take his people and slaughter their way through the Canaanites, who are the descendants of Noah. Right? They're all the descendants of Noah, and they had to slaughter their way. So people who don't know don't realize that Sodom and Gomorrah were actually Canaanite cities. So Lot was living in a Canaanite city.
Right.
You know? And so there's just a lot to it. The murder, death, kill that goes on, if it's as bad as they say it was, well, what kind of person was Lot?
Right.
You know, he couldn't have been all that good a person. Then we're going to entrust him with 2 young girls in a cave and some alcohol and apparently a pen and paper.
Well, speaking of that, if you're talking about his character, we'll just look at what happened when supposedly those 2 male angels come. Supposedly, the townspeople come and want to have sex with them. And he says, I have 2 virgin daughters. I'll just give one to you. I think it's one or two, both of them.
He threw them both out, but they didn't want them.
They didn't want them. But once again, this goes to they must have been young, or whatever. They're obviously still virgins and they're not married.
Well, actually, back in the day of ancient Israelites or Hebrews, virgin girls were all the rest. I mean, they were like passé because, anytime you had a war or anything, you got to keep. I mean, that was nothing. To have a virgin girl was nothing, I don't think.
But I'm saying is it shows his character of not really caring about his daughters.
Absolutely.
Like, some strangers come? Yeah, go ahead, just take my daughters. I mean, nowadays, just think of what we would think of someone who did that.
Absolutely. Well, the Bible teaches us on 2 separate occasions that the very, very first thing you do when a horny horde of homosexual Hebrews starts banging on your door, wanting to have sex with men in your house, the very first thing you do is you throw out your virgin daughters. That's, of course, like you need the Bible to tell you that. It's so common sense. But
well, also, wasn't it that he threw out his slave or his housekeeper and they killed her or tortured her or something like that?
See, it's beautiful that you mentioned that. We have 2 different stories. That's what I'm talking about. We have 2 different stories. One of them is the story of Lot and it's his 2 daughters. Mm-hmm. The other one is the story of the Levite, okay, and the old man of Gibeah. The Levite is traveling, and he travels back to Bethlehem to get his wife who ran away, his new bride, so she's probably 12 to 14.
Right.
She ran away back to Bethlehem. He went to get her. He comes along. He's got his manservant with him. So he and the manservant are the 2 angels. They go to the center town. The old man of Gibeah, which is actually Lot in the other story, goes and gets them, takes them back to his house, just like in the story of Lot. The horny horde of homosexual Hebrews come banging on the door because they want to rape the traveler and his manservant. The old man goes out and says, do not do this. He offers his daughter. They say no. Then he comes back in, and the Levite, the traveler, pitches out his concubine. They refer to her as his concubine. So she probably wasn't a virgin, and therefore of less value than the daughter who was a virgin. Right. So he pitched her out and just shut the door. And in the first story of Lot, the angels go out and they blind all the men.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly particulars. So I'm glad you do because I don't read the Bible every day, but
well,
I haven't read it probably in about 5 years.
He pitches her out, and they rape her to death. His concubine. And the next day, he goes out there, he finds her dead, he cuts her into 12 different pieces, sends her to the tribes of Judah, telling them that this town had done this, and all the tribes of Judah come and eventually destroy the town, just like Sodom gets destroyed. So people think Sodom was destroyed by God, but Sodom was in reality, it's another story. The 2 stories are told, and we know what happened to Sodom.
Right.
It was destroyed by the other people of the communities for something that Sodom had done in this other story. So twice though, the example, when a horny horde of homosexual Hebrews comes after you, you throw out your little girls.
Yeah, disgusting. Horrid.
Yep.
So
true.
Yeah,
that's the Bible for you.
Well, but I think it's interesting how then they always try to justify and, well, God didn't demand that. And come on. This is another thing that I think is interesting when people are like, well, that was the Old Testament. I believe in Jesus. And I'm like, oh, so then you believe that Jesus said everything was perfect. I mean, now let's just say if some of that shouldn't have been in there, or Jesus felt that there was an error in how it was being perceived, he could have corrected it right then, right there.
Absolutely.
Instead, what he said is everything is perfect. Not a jot or tittle is going to change. Well, then he's accepting every nonsense that a lot of these Christians try to explain away. He didn't. He never gave an explanation or anything.
And he didn't say, I come to remove the laws.
No.
He said, I come to fulfill them. You need to be doing those laws, right?
Yes.
So, I don't know. A lot of the examples, they said, no, we're talking about Lot. Lot was saved intentionally by God. God sent his angels.
Right.
So then Lot, with angels in tow, tries to pitch out his daughter. And no commentary is made by God or the angels about such a thing.
Or Jesus, hey, you know that story? It was kind of disgusting. Yeah, that we didn't support that. So I find.
And how many of them want to believe that Jesus is God from the Old Testament?
All of them.
All right, they want to believe that. So he murdered babies?
Yeah, he did.
Yes,
Well, that's like I told Ray Comfort on the street when he was trying to do his little spiel with me. I said, hold on a second. When you say God, you're referring to the God of the Bible, right? Yeah. The God that was the biggest mass murderer, if your book is correct, in the history of the world. Worse than Hitler, worse than everybody, because supposedly he drowned the entire world, right?
Yeah.
All the babies, all the animals, killed all the plants, everything. That's your God you're talking about? Yeah, if that was real, why would I care to worship that God? Seriously. Right. I wouldn't worship Hitler, and I wouldn't respect anyone that does.
Yeah, absolutely. But a lot of them just don't see it, you know.
No, they got that, like I said, blinders. No, they're good. Like I said, oh, you're talking about paganism? Oh, yeah, screw those people. Yeah. But I've also had the other thing where people that could be pagan and like, oh, yeah, screw those Christians. You know, well, pagans weren't, crimeless either. They did a lot of horrid things.
Yeah.
Killing their babies, killing other people, torturing people. In fact, I mean, even the Romans who were pagans, they were big on the cross. They put a whole bunch of people on the cross, not just Jesus.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They were way into pro-torture.
I've seen Spartacus.
Yeah. So, I mean.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
they had like the 6 Mile road covered with crosses of the slaves.
Right.
And this notion that Jesus died for our sins, Jesus was momentarily inconvenienced. He had a crappy weekend for our sins, and to say that Jesus allegedly, right, if we're going with the Jesus is real, Jesus allegedly knew he was going to be resurrected in 3 days. He knew that he's going to be around for a little while after that, and then he was going to be risen bodily into heaven. He knew he was going to sit at the right hand of God. So where's the sacrifice? There's no sacrifice. I mean, it's like, I know in order to get to Mexico, I got to swim across the river. You swim across the river. And then you're in Mexico and everything. Well, you know what I mean? It was a tiny, tiny, tiny little inconvenience if he was truly the Son of God. Now, if he was a real person, man, that's a horrible story, but other people have suffered worse.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting, too, is how they don't see the element of a kind of a pagan sort of polytheistic, because if you're saying he is God, then he is the same person. How can he then sit beside himself? I mean,
that's right.
What the? How does he sit on the right hand or any hand of God when he's God? So you're saying he's not God then, right? I mean, it's two separate beings.
Yeah, absolutely. And this notion that he suffered for our sins. I read a story the other day about a kid. I'm not going to go all sad on you, but this kid was killed by his parents. Mom and her boyfriend. They beat him. They tortured him. He had cigarette burns all over his body. He slept in a box at the foot of the bed. He was chained to the bed. He was like half the weight that a kid that size should weigh. The things that they did to this poor boy are horrendous. He suffered more. That kid suffered. This Jesus, he went through a little thing, and he didn't suffer. Sure, he got whipped a few times. Ow. But wait, you're the Almighty God. You're going to be okay. You're going to, again, rise bodily. There's no sacrifice there. This notion, and I'll challenge any Christian that wants to talk about it.
Well, and I also think this. If you take the God concept and you really believe it the way the Bible presents it, then Jesus actually maybe didn't suffer enough. Because they say Jesus was blameless, but how can that be so if he's God? Then he's the one that actually murdered the whole earth with the global flood. So if he's a murderer, maybe he deserved to be tortured. Maybe he deserved to be on a cross. If he needed to repent, maybe it was the fact that he did do that. I mean, if you're going to take their thing, I mean, how can he not be attached with that blame when he even admits?
Yeah.
And in fact, he even supposedly admitted it was wrong. I'll never do it again, saying it was wrong, and I'll give you this rainbow. So, I mean, then Jesus' suffering might have been, in a sense, in that system of thinking, appropriate.
Yeah. Well, you know, I would argue that the Bible is upside down. Satan is actually the good guy. The Bible was written by the devil. The devil is God. You know?
Yeah.
Because Satan, if we're going to call the serpent Satan.
Well, just to clarify, people, I know
they're different.
Yeah, but I was going to say, to clarify for people, neither of us believe there's a real Satan or a real God. We're just, those mythical figures, but go ahead.
Right. We're just poking holes in their logic.
Right, exactly.
So Satan, the serpent, comes along and he sees a mind slave, a pair of mind slaves living in a garden. They're literally slaves living in this garden, doing the God's bidding in this thing. And he comes along and he's like, there's a gate over here. Now, wait. Well, sin created Eve when she ate the apple. But sin is created when you do something contrary to God. If God obviously didn't want Adam and Eve to eat the apple. The serpent came along and said, eat the apple. God's not telling you the truth. You certainly won't die. That is a sin. Because that's against God. But she ain't ate the apple yet. So the serpent has actually sinned before Eve ever gets the opportunity to sin. And also there's this other notion that, how come God, all right, so God is like this little voice in your head telling you to do the right thing. But that's kind of what I've heard. But Satan is always there too. And Satan just seems to be always equally powerful. Satan told me, or he's whispering in your ear, he's telling me to go smoke cigarettes, or he's telling me to go to the strip club and throw some dollars down. Satan, he's telling me to cheat on my wife. Satan is freaking everywhere. I thought he was just an angel.
Well, I think it's weird too, the fact that supposedly what they did when they ate the apple was the tree of knowledge of good and evil, meaning that prior to that they had no concept of good and evil. So how can you say that they've done an evil act when they didn't even know that they were doing that act? I mean, that's like saying that a baby's just born, has no concept of morality. And yet, if they do any action, we're going to hold them morally accountable. I mean, it's I know it sounds crazy, brother, but that's literally what happens. You are born dirty.
Yeah. You are born in sin. Babies are born. That's really how they think. I mean, it's because of this. Now we know scientifically that there was no Adam and Eve. I mean, there may have been a genetic Eve and there may have been a genetic Adam, but they are nowhere near related to each other.
They're not.
We're talking hundreds of thousands of years, tens at least.
And space too. They're both in Africa, but one's probably in East Africa and one's in North Africa.
Yeah, so those two individuals never ever met. There's no Adam and Eve story like that to be told.
No.
So if there's no Adam and Eve story and she never sinned, then what did Jesus die for?
Yeah. Well, I want to clarify too about what geneticists, when they mean genetic Eve or Adam, they mean all lineages now can be traced back to that. It doesn't mean that these people ever met, like you said. They just means that this lineage of what is male can be traced back to this point, and what the female can trace back to this point. But they're actually never interacted. It's two different, almost like clans or whatever.
Yeah, you can actually think of it like here's this group of pre-people beforehand. Here's this group of people, and only one woman who bred out of that.
Yeah.
All the rest, every one of them died.
Correct.
None of them had progenitors that live, and therefore she is the...
Correct.
Her descendants gave us what was the rest. None of the descendants from any of the other females from that time
Exactly.
survived. That's all.
Exactly.
That's all it means.
Well, I'm just saying, because sometimes people think, aha, they said genetic Eve. And I'm like, aha, that doesn't mean nothing, because you're not getting what a geneticist means by that.
Of course. And the same thing with genetic Adam. We both agree there's no real Adam.
No.
It's just somewhere down the line there was monkey men. Let's call them monkey men, pre-people. They weren't quite people. And of those pre-people, none of the men who were there did they carry on their lineage. Only one.
Right.
Who carried on. And therefore, he became our, so if there's no real Adam and Eve, and there was no apple, it wasn't an apple, there was no fruit, there was no serpent, if none of those things happened, well, the whole purpose of the sacrificing throughout the Old Testament is to get rid of your sin. Jesus gets rid of our sin for the whole thing. But if there was no original sin, there's no need for Jesus.
That's right.
It's all a story.
That's right. Which it is. There is no original sin, and it's all a story. But worse than that, let's assume that somehow that someone would hold a morality that there's such thing as original sin. What you're saying is that these two beings in the story that do not understand morality did an immoral act that not only they're punished with, but thousands of years later they're still being punished for what these two people that the story claims did not understand morality?
Right.
I mean,
and it gets worse because those two people, the woman did it, so she gets the blame. And if you listen to the story, then not only does she have pain in childbirth, but part of her condemnation for that act is the love and servitude of her husband.
Yeah, which says a lot for the husband too, if he's a punishment.
Yeah, he's
right. They're like, if I told you, you have to love your husband, and that doesn't sound like it's something you're freely doing and it's a joyous act. Because if it is, why is it a punishment?
Yeah, and she went from being a helper to being a servant at that point in the story. Now, those kind of things, whenever we take a look at her and what she did, now this is one of the things very misogynistic is the Bible. She ate an apple, ate a fruit, and for that she had to suffer, and all women since then have to suffer.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's unethical.
She had two boys. One of those boys became jealous of the other because of the love of God. Yeah. Even though they met God, they walked with God in the garden on the regular, he became jealous because of something God did. God even did it on purpose. He gave him the best of the fruit of the land. His brother gave him the best of the flock, and God liked the best of the flock and shunned his work. Why did he shun his work? He doesn't say. It says his work was good. There was nothing wrong with it. So no wonder why Cain got upset. And then when God's like, why are you upset? If you do what is good, you will be rewarded. Well, I did what is good, and now you're doing this. So, he lashed out. So the very first children murdered in the name of God.
Yeah.
It was instigated by God. Now, let's take Cain. He's murdered his brother. What is the reward in heaven, or in the Old Testament from God? A long life, many children. So, Cain now gets punished for murdering his brother. He has to walk along the world, and no one in the planet will harm him. A mark is put on him by God, so no one will kill him. So he gets to live a long life.
Yeah, well, I've heard people before try to say that they think that the mark was if he was black, like some racist. No, I'm saying racist. And I always go, okay, well, if that's true, you did get the part that God said don't harm him?
Yeah,
so,
and they harm the hell out of him.
Right, I'm just saying, so how do you, it's like, this. I know the whole book has kind of got all kinds of illogical and contradictions, but it's like, it's so funny how people, once again, they like cherry pick what favors them and don't really actually, even, use the book, what it says.
Right. Well, Cain went on, not only did he live a long life, but he also had children who went on to be fathers of nations. So Eve eats an apple. She has pain in childbirth. She has to bleed. She's enslaved to her husband, and she's treated like crap for all of eternity. It even goes on to tease her. 1 Timothy 22, where it says, you shall not teach a man. A woman shall not teach a man. The very next scripture says, because Eve fell for the apple.
Right.
It blames her in that. So even in the New Testament, Peter wrote this. In the New Testament, he was writing based on what happened to Eve in the Old Testament. So now, that's Eve, and all she did was eat an apple. This guy murdered his own brother out of jealousy.
Right.
And what's he get? A slap on the wrist.
Right.
Gets to be a long life. He goes on. His children, he goes on to have children who have,
And God protected him. So, I mean.
And God protected him. And, one of the things, in the Old Testament, in the beginning, God cursed the ground and made it hard to work. And Cain worked the ground. So he had a hard, sucky job. One of his curses by God after he killed Abel was that, to live a long life, and no fruit or nothing you plant in the ground will grow for you anymore.
Right.
And then also you'll wander as a lost soul or whatever. But So all these things that he literally rewarded Cain for murdering his brother. They're all rewards. Anything you would consider a reward in the Old Testament. But look what Eve did, and just throughout the rest of it, women they're always subjugated, and it's not just that religion. They're all forced into modesty. No matter which religion, they're all forced into modesty.
Yeah, but sometimes it's considered like it's somehow their fault. You know,
absolutely.
Like you shouldn't tempt men. That's why we rape you.
Well, again, because I'm doing the Evil God Monster of Abraham series, I'm actually going through the book of Genesis, and so I'm through chapter 8. But in chapter 4 or 5, the sons of God came down and had sex with women because they were so beautiful.
Right.
So women, and here's the notion, and so many women have been oppressed because of this notion. But if they were so beautiful that they could tempt the sons of God, then we need them to cover themselves, because what can a mortal man? How can we restrain ourselves when you were beautiful enough to tempt the sons of God?
Which actually is
cover their hair.
Is wrong, because then you've actually not taught men don't freaking rape. I mean,
right, no,
isn't that the better story? Hey, let's just not rape people. I mean, that could have been one of the commandments, right? Or Jesus could have said that.
We can control ourselves because they're so, that's the whole notion. They're so beautiful. We just can't. So you need to cover that up. You need to cover that hair. You need to cover. In one part, it says not to go into a church with gold or with hair shown or something for the women. I don't remember exactly, because you're going to tempt the angels. It's just nonsense. It's all nonsense used to oppress women. So I'm very pro-woman, by the way. I like me some women.
Yeah, I'm a feminist. I mean, I don't see where it's not a benefit to be a feminist. I mean, I read people
that love being trapped in a man's body.
I know some guys don't like saying they're feminists because they somehow think it's like anti-men. But that's wrong, because I'm a humanist because of what I care about. I'm a feminist because of what I care about. Every word doesn't always have to do reference, the specific thing. If I say I'm for LGBT rights, we don't have to say, oh, well, I also care that straight people are protected. I mean, it's there's an understanding, by default, an understanding that, well, straight people really aren't getting persecuted, so that's not what we should be focusing on. So when I say that I'm pro, LGBTQIA rights, I'm talking about people that are having, their rights violated.
Right, absolutely. And it happens all the time. I mean, for any manner of notion. Well, we just got finished talking about the law going in Kentucky.
Right.
It's really kind of an anti-trans law.
Yeah.
But it's kind of how it all started, is my understanding. So it's because of that. We need to keep an eye out for those kinds of things.
Well, and I think that you're doing a really exemplary job by having your Daily Atheist show and talking to different people. I know I did about 100 interviews, and a lot of them I wanted to hear from people that were outside the heterosexual male, and from America. I've got people from other countries, other religions, other sexualities, other genders, because I want to be able to support people, but also I feel like that their voice isn't heard enough. It's like, it's assumed, that every atheist is a male, white, cis, heterosexual,
Yeah, that's true.
And so
But we can't also assume that just because they're gay, lesbian, or trans that they're pro-atheist.
Oh, no, I do know that, because I've actually gone to prides as an atheist and had a booth, because the reason I first did it wasn't because I thought of doing it. It was the fact that someone told me that there was, I think they said there was like 8 or something Christian groups that go there. And I said, well, how many atheists go there? They said, no one. I said, guess what? I'm going to go. Because someone needs to go there. Because I felt like they always tell me, oh, but those people say that they welcome them. And I said, I'm going to go there and tell them, guess what? I'm an atheist and I don't have any bigotry to stop. So I don't have to welcome you. I just see you as a fellow person. And I don't have, and any atheist that's doing it is certainly not doing it because there's some, divine command, because there isn't. That's just your own preference, your own culture, inadequacies that you're pushing.
And they really like to strawman us, tell us what we like, what we do, and they're like, that's not That's not at all what we do. That's not how we believe. I don't know where they get this stuff sometimes. Some of them will come up and they'll be honest and they understand what an atheist is. Oftentimes they don't. I mean, I've had a woman cross herself when I told her I was an atheist. I thought she was going to run away, but unfortunately she didn't.
Sometimes it's fun when I like doing street activism, because I love when people, get to experience an atheist for the first time. And it's funny how they come at us sometimes really hard, but it's also funny to me that you're able to get them to change that view sometimes in just one time. And I think that's just shows how needed it is for us to do activism, because it doesn't take really usually that much effort, and people change. Like, they go, "Oh, you guys are normal." Like, yeah. You guys believe in morality? Yeah. You guys believe in helping people? Of course. I'm not saying every single atheist does. There's some anti-humanistic atheists, but I don't like being around them, and I certainly don't promote that or think that they should be keeping, those kind of sick value systems. I feel like, to me personally, the moment I realize I'm an atheist, I realize that there's no one coming to save us. And that so any saving that's going to happen has to be us doing that. It's just by default. I mean, who else is, it's going to be us. And how best, if I want to care about reality of the world, how best can we achieve this? Group helping. Well, it certainly isn't by being bigoted and sexist and homophobic and all that, because those people are part of our humanity. So just for me, by default, I just don't see how they're doing this. They're keeping these bigotries, but I mean, they certainly do, and I hope they change.
Hopefully, yeah. Well, I would like to think that with time, our culture and our civilization grows further from. There was a time back in the 50s and 60s we were going through segregation, and you had the things that was happening then that doesn't happen now.
Yeah.
There's different battle fronts, but those things we've moved on past that. Now, some people still feel that way. Some people are still racist and feel blacks deserve this and that and this and that. But that number is so much smaller now that they don't have the representation to stand out on street corners with signs preaching that stuff, like they did back in the 60s during the.
True, it's definitely less, but it certainly hasn't gone. I mean, look at what happened with
that's right.
Unite the Right rallies and all that sick shit.
Yeah. With anything, you start out here and you work your way down until it's gone.
Yeah.
And, we're into this area. I'm hoping. And then Trump came along. I didn't want to take your thing that direction, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, feel free. I mean, I don't have any limitations. I talk about all kinds of stuff on my show. So I thought we were doing great with Obama, and we were becoming more civilized, more Unitarian, more peaceful, more loving as a society. And then apparently having a black man in the office was enough to trigger the entire riot. And, just went mad. Yeah, well, you can see that after he started, the amount of hate groups almost doubled or tripled. It got way, way, way more. And
I've heard them blame him. I've had a Christian friend, I think it was my buddy Mike, who said, after he came into office, it was something he did that caused these. I don't know, it wasn't Mike who said that.
Yeah, and
something he did that caused the extra racism that caused these groups to pop up. I'm like, all he did was be. He wore a tan suit, for goodness sake.
I know. It's like, I feel personally that he didn't do enough for the black community. My own personal feeling. I feel like I thought he was going to do a lot more. I thought, finally someone who's going to quit, messing around and actually do a bunch of really, needed things. And he did some stuff, but very, very, to me, limited in what he should have done, to me. I understand, there's only so much you can do when you have so much, going on. And I think that his mode was more like, I don't want to offend anybody, so they feel like there's a reason to say that I did anything. Right. Is not saying he didn't do some stuff, but he wasn't as active as I mean, he did a few things, but I really was shocked that he didn't do more.
Yeah, me too. And I blame Trump on him.
Well, I blame Trump on America's hatred and
well, if Trump was in cohorts with Russia beforehand, which like we believe that he was, and indications that the FBI knew he was doing certain things, but Obama didn't want to listen in because he was afraid of causing problems or being seen as, that was a failure, and that led a freaking Russian troll into our White House.
Well, I know what you're saying, and that's like I said though, I feel like that kind of is the thinking of why he didn't be a bit more active towards the things that the black community needed. Like he could have a lot stronger towards that. But like I said, I don't think that it really he deserves a lot of blame in that area. I think some of the other things he did were good and some things were bad. I don't love him or hate him. I think there's some good things and not. I think that it's a disgusting that Trump became president for a whole bunch of reasons. I mean, it's just an outright racist, sexist, homophobe, and the transphobe. I mean, the guy is. And then he's crude and rude to people that are handicapped. I mean, seriously, when he became president, I mean, I've never cared that much. I'm an anarchist, so I care, but it's like it doesn't affect me as much as maybe some people. I cried for 5 hours straight when they said Trump became president. I didn't even mean to. I just was like, I hate what America is if this is what we can come to. I mean, it disgusts me.
I hate to say it, but it's going to get worse. I say that because I believe, and this is one of those predictions where I want to be wrong.
Right.
I believe that our voting system is so gerrymandered.
It is.
The electronic part of it, the machines are so corrupted. Who investigates that stuff? Who puts those machines in? Oh yeah, did you know it's this Republican congressman's son who owns the company that runs the machines? Well, if the machines are corrupted and somebody does something illegal, like hacks them and makes it to where Trump wins the election, who investigates that? Who's the top guy who does that? If that top guy does an investigation of the situation, Trump just has him replaced.
True.
Our entire system has been now corrupted. I don't think we're going to win. I don't think we're going to get it back. I don't think we're going to get it back. And then I don't think in 3 years or 4 years after his second term, he's not going to step out of office. He's going to have enough power in the conservative, in Congress and the Senate to change the law to allow himself to be in forever. That's where I see this going. It's just so corrupt. Unless he strokes out. I didn't want to cuss on your channel. Unless he strokes out, you don't get to be 70-something years old eating McDonald's all the time and overweight like that and not have problems. But
yeah, I mean, I really hope that doesn't happen. I mean, I don't know that it's a guarantee. I think that even if he won and it had nothing to do with, in a sense, them gerrymandering stuff, which I know that is a big deal about, or if there wasn't such a worry about the machines, I think that there's people that are just in his cult in a sense, because it's like the farmers and they're like, I still support him. I lost everything. Trump's ideas made me bankrupt, but you know what? I like that he hates liberals. I mean, it's not even, there's no reason. No one's even caring that all these people that he gave these tax cuts and they benefited the rich and no one else, just like voodoo economics always has.
Yeah.
And they don't have anything. And the Republicans that are supposedly the fiscal hawks and this and the Tea Party. Remember, how dare you do one thing? And now Trump comes and they're like, yeah, be a king. I'm totally okay with that. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with these people?
I know they tattoo the Constitution on their bodies whenever it suits them, and then whenever Trump is crapping all over it, they don't care. All they care about is that second one, the Second Amendment. That's all they care about, and only part of it. Have you read the rest of the Second Amendment? Ask them that. What's the rest of it?
Well, what's interesting about the Second Amendment? It's like the gun lobby now says they don't want anything, but when the 60s, when the Black Panthers started carrying rifles and stuff around out in public, all of a sudden they didn't really want black people to own guns, and they really didn't want no gun, Right.
Part of the reason why the Second Amendment is in place is really more about slaveholders. Back in the day, there was these groups that were helping slave people go from one to the other or something like that. And the Second Amendment rights was the rights given to the states for owners to have their own guns so they can. It had to do with slavery. I'd have to go look it up. But if you're interested, go look it up. It had to do with slavery, slave ownership.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and even if it was prior to that reason, they also had the belief that they're militias, and the reason they're militias is because they didn't have a strong enough standing army. Now we have more than just the army. We have the Marines, which is a newer thing. We have the Navy, we have the Air Force, and now we have the fantasy world of spacecrafts and the Space Force. Which the Air Force probably should have been already taken care of, but because we don't have any current spacecrafts.
Right. No, right. Well, also back then, a militia means something. It's not just, that doesn't mean everybody and their dog gets a gun. Mm-hmm. A militia was a group of people who were marshaled in times of need. They were usually citizens or people who lived there. They didn't just wander up all by themselves. They were organized. And, I could be wrong, but wasn't George Washington part of a militia at some time?
I know he's part of the military.
The people. It doesn't mean just anybody and their dog gets a weapon. It means people are organized in lack of an army.
But what I really find is interesting is that obviously they don't think that the militia rule, right, the Second Amendment, means I can own a tank. Do you know what I'm saying?
Some of them do.
Well, I know. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. So they already are acknowledging, in a sense, logical, constraints to that. So even if you do believe in it, and I don't really have so much a problem with the ability to own guns, but I do have a problem with no rules to make it more ethical and sound for the community. To me, I don't really care. Say if someone were to own a certain kind of gun. But what I say is this: it should not be able to go through the wall. So if I live in an apartment, I shouldn't have a 50 Magnum, Desert Eagle, with I think it's like 10 in the clip or something. I can't remember. Maybe it's 8. But where I can shoot a bullet and it will physically go through the wall and still kill someone, I don't think that gun should be shot as a personal protection in a house. Now, if you're out in the woods, in a house, where there's a lot of land, then maybe it's less of an issue. But to me, there has to be some reason. Are you saying that you can't have a shotgun, that splatters and probably won't kill your neighbors? Certainly I wouldn't use shotgun with slugs, because once again, that might punch through the wall.
That's right. That's exactly right. Or you could have a 9mm pistol and a shotgun, and do everything you need to defend your home. If that's not enough to defend your home, you need to move.
Right.
Deer rifle that will shoot. I've said this for a long time. If you need a deer rifle, well, first of all, you're not going to hurt a lot of people with a deer rifle. You know how hard that is. It's just a shotgun is what you need.
Right.
If you're going to go the rifle way, and then you miss that person. If you miss the person and the bullet, like you said, goes through the wall, there's a 9-year-old kid asleep over in their bed.
Yeah, the bullet's
going to go right through them like butter.
So I'm not saying that you can't have guns. For me, my own personal belief, I just believe there should be rules of where we should have guns, how we should have guns, and they don't want common sense, and they don't want any rules at all. So I'm so I'm kind of in between. I'm not for removing all guns, and I'm certainly not for this no gun laws. I want strong laws and strong rights. That's what I like. I like reason.
I like big rats, and I cannot lie.
So, because I really I want the best. So, just like I have no personal problem if you have, some machine gun, but I think you should have to have a license. I think you have to be insured, just like a car. The fact that this gun could go kill people. I don't personally think, like I said, you should have it in your apartment. You should have to have a storage place so that it's removed from you, cannot be stolen by drug addicts. Right, reasonable. So you want to own this fully automatic machine gun? Okay, it has to be stored at the local gun range.
That's right. And I think there should be very, very severe punishments for parents whose kids get killed by their guns because they didn't secure them. Some people will argue, well, they've already lost a child, they've had enough. No, that's not enough. It's not enough.
Well, it's negligence.
We lose more kids in this country every year by guns not being properly secured than we do by military people over in the Middle East. Every year.
Well, we even have kids that shoot their own parents.
Well, that happens too. Yeah, there was this one some mommy gun supporter, Second Amendment rights kind of person going around. She was always showing up, going pro rights. She got shot in the back by her own little kid because she put her gun in the back seat in her purse, and he was in a car seat, and he got into the purse, and he was fondling with the gun, and he shot her through the back, and he killed her.
Yeah.
But how many times do you hear about kids killing other little kids accidentally or killing themselves with the guns? Like I said, more kids die because of loose guns. Now, if the punishment was, listen, if your kid dies, you're going to prison for the rest of your life. For the rest of your natural life, you will sit in prison. People would start. I think we need that kind of deterrent, because apparently losing your child is not enough, because hundreds, if not thousands of times per year, it happens. And do they not? They see the articles. I see the articles. It even shows up on Fox News. I have seen articles on Fox News where it says,
they know.
Kid kills his neighbor with a gun. Even they will say it. So to say you don't hear that it doesn't happen, is just intentional blindness. People like that need to go to jail.
Well, I think it's a sad thing is that what they do is they go, well, if one thing happens, then it's going to be like a slippery slope towards removing everything. And so to me, they go against any kind of a thing that's going to put it some sort of a constraint.
Right.
And in general, to me, that is then you've taken reason and just threw it out the window. Imagine if we did all of our laws like that. You're not going to make any law against a car. No insurance, right. No nothing, because any law is already removing my right to drive.
That's right. And a lot of these people, they sit there and they think, well, if the government gets corrupt, we'll be able to fight them with these guns. Well, look, we've got a government where we have evidence of a foreign nation interfering with our election. We have evidence of our president, working with X, Y, and Z to do A, B, and C. The NRA was given millions of dollars by Russia that went to the GOP, which now sits on our country has been bought by the Russians, and they are doing things. Where are you, gun people? Come on. This is exactly what they say. What they mean, though, is if it ever gets taken over by liberals, by Obamites. That's what they're talking about. If a fascist right-wing government that's willing to oppress brown people, who's willing to oppress women, get your asses back in the kitchen, who's willing to be pro-gun and pro-God, we're all for it. Fascist up, brothers.
Yeah, as long as it's not Allah.
As long, because Allah's brown.
Right.
Allah's
or not
brown.
Krishna, because Krishna's blue.
Cesare Borgia white.
Yeah. So it's, but to me, in general, our military would have a field day on the few people with guns trying to fight them. It's ludicrous.
Absolutely.
You would have to be better in a coup, joining the military to take over the government than trying to use you to fight our military.
Well, we've got lots of examples of modern day activities where groups of individual people try to take on a government. When you look at the Middle East, and you'll see these cities where the city has just been laid waste.
Yeah.
Because once that goes to that, the military doesn't care at that point, and they will wipe out that entire apartment building to get to you, the resistance.
Right.
And so you see the evidence of that all through, what's the name? There's these cities over in the Middle East. Well,
Syria definitely. The government was doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Iraq. I'm sure there's parts of Iraq. You can just see where these things have happened, where they fought back against Iran. Not Iran. I'm thinking Iraq.
Well, Iraq did fight Iran, so that's not inaccurate. It depends on when you're talking.
The Palestinian area right outside of Israel, it's all a wasteland of buildings that have been destroyed.
And so is Lebanon. Lebanon and Beirut used to be really nice, and now I don't know about me personally now, but when war happened, it just.
And one thing they don't realize is that they're thinking, oh, I'll be safe, right? But they don't realize that our military can actually use infrared to see your little dugout behind your trailer house. We can see it.
Oh, yeah.
We know it's there. Do they not watch this on the military, where our military is engaging these ground troops over in the Middle East? I've seen the videos not on YouTube. I think it's other video streaming. And you can see the helicopters shooting them from far, far away. And, the guys don't even know they're being watched by a drone.
No. So it's especially nowadays, it's really pretty laughable. Like I said, to me, we need reasoned, gun laws. I'm cool with strong rights, but not. There has to be, a give and take towards the community. I mean, it's like, I'm a nudist. I like to go to nudist resorts. I'm not saying that the entire population should somehow just do that just because I like it. I mean, the whole community. I think people should be allowed to be themselves, but within reason.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, totally. That's the whole deal. It's the thing we're against is unregulated.
That's right.
That's what we're against. I have got a meme somewhere that says, so you think liberals are trying to kill our children? You're talking about atheists, and when it's actually the NRA you're thinking of. Because they are.
Yeah.
The more kids get killed, the more they start pumping, we need to, every time there's a gun incident, somebody goes and shoots up a kid, now's not the time to talk about guns and restricting guns. So you wait a month and you're like, now the time? Oh, no. We don't have a problem. There's not a gun problem. Everything is fine. And then another mass murder with a bunch of kids getting shot in school are like, now's not the time to talk about restricting guns. They'll come out hugging their guns. Oh my God, you poor thing. I'm glad you're safe. Those bad liberals want to come get your guns. To hell with all those little kids that just got murdered. Yeah. We are not the same people. I am not that same person. We're not the same. Me and the people who think like that.
Oh well, me either. And like I said, I'm an anarchist, and I want as much freedom for the individual, but I also want the whole community to also have safety. I mean, we all have. In other words, your rights end at where it starts touching my rights.
Mm-hmm. Well, the way I see it, there's a great analogy of the liberal progressive notion of the future is like Star Trek. Everybody lives a great life, blah, 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 blah. It's all Star Trek-ish. The ideal right-wing future is Mad Max.
Yeah. And they always see themselves as the one that are ruling everything. And I just laugh because what they don't get is in that system, other people with a bunch of guns, let's just say other right wing, might come and kill you and your family with you and your few guns. I mean, you're
perfectly justified doing it in that scenario.
Yeah.
And it's these people, I bought this thing, I got this camper back in there, I buried a camper in the backyard, and we got lots of water out there. And they sit around lusting after the end of the world so they can go use that stuff.
Yeah.
I used to have this friend down in Texas. He had machine guns and lots of ammo. He was nobody you'd really think of as being a violent person. But he would talk about, when the Obamites come over the hill, I'll be ready. Like Obamites are going to come over. People who want to give you liberty and give you health care are going to come hurt you. And, that's something else. They're going to come take away your army.
Yeah.
It's not like you really have a need. When was the last time? I mean, I am almost 50 years old and have never needed a gun in my life. Never once have I needed a gun. Some people have. That is true. But if it weren't for guns, you wouldn't need them. It's just one of those things, man. There is an opportunity to where they could be a good thing, but without regulation, these people are all about non-regulation. We don't need more guns in school. These people want our teachers to carry guns. The first time a teacher drops a gun that he carried into school because it was his job to carry it into school and it goes off and kills a kid, I am going to be just powerless.
Well, I think that there's a lot of stuff they should do about making schoolrooms where you can close the door and it's bulletproof. I mean,
they're doing that, but should we have to?
Well, I think that, it would be great if women could walk, alone at night in any area and not get raped or killed or kidnapped. But we have to, so I do think that we have to also understand that we live in a certain type of environment, and how do we get the most people to be safe? Because even if they brought a few 9mm, what if I had 4 9mm? I can still, no machine guns, just handguns. I'm saying I could still come in with multiple handguns and just use, or multiple clips. And, because you can get, I think, a 9mm with a 30-round clip. I mean, you can, it's a semi-automatic, but you can certainly do something. So I think
that we can regulate that then, right?
Well, we can regulate that you don't have the long clips, and we can regulate, different things. But I'm just saying, even if you didn't, I still see the benefit of making schools safer regardless. Making schools fireproof, as much as you can, in a sense, explosion proof, or at least limit the damage, and make it so if someone gets in it, let's say if someone comes in the room, a teacher hit a button, door closes, locks.
Totally.
Because you can do tear gas. There's things that you can do, even if it affects all the kids, it still affects the shooter.
Absolutely. No, well, here's the deal. We can't, even if we pass these gun laws today, there's nothing we can do. Well, whenever Obama came into office, anytime the Democrats get into office, the gun lobby and the conservatives start going, oh, they're coming after your guns. They're coming after your guns. So we have sold hundreds of millions of guns. You can go look at the chart from when the chart going across from when Obama went into office. It just went like that. Now Trump got into office. Didn't Remington go out of business? Wasn't it Remington that filed bankruptcy?
I don't know.
Yeah, but because conservatives are bad for guns. Democrats come in office, they're good for guns. So even if we pass those laws now, we have had a decade to where almost unfettered gun access. We've got hundreds and hundreds of millions of guns on our streets. Not only that, but we've also got a government that stopped offering any kind of mental health care and cutting back on any of those things that people need. And we've got an exploding right wing that has an openly racist, hate-filled leader in the President of the United States. We've got a lot of things combining here, so those shootings are not going to stop.
Well, and he has
they don't happen more often.
Well, and he has pretty incendiary rhetoric where he says, things that are, I'm going to get them, I'm going to destroy them, I'm going to,
Remember the Gifford lady who got shot in the head? Remember her? Yes. Over in Arizona, she got shot in the head. Yeah, perfect example. It was rhetoric that got one of the things that got that guy in there. You know what stopped him? He had to reload.
Right.
So he did have the extended clips, my understanding, but whenever he did have to reload, somebody tackled him, and that was the end of the situation. Had he not had the extended clips, how many people would have, And, of course, this is another one of those situations where they weren't his guns at all. They were his mom's guns.
Right.
Is his mom in prison? His mom should be in prison forever.
Yeah.
For him getting those guns and killing those people. Yeah, I said it. I don't care. If you don't secure those things, so many people have died, it's not worth it.
Well, we definitely, like I said, we need reasonable laws that says that the guns have to be stored a certain way. Like I said, I don't have a problem if someone wants a machine gun. I don't think it should be in your house. I think it should be stored at the gun range or some other sort of a facility where it cannot be robbed. Period. Then you can get it out, then only you, and then when you check it out, then they're keeping an eye on what you're doing and when you bring that gun back. And they don't like all that. They want to have free access and no kind of, constraints, and no one knows, and just like I think it's
everybody to have a gun.
Well, I think it's a reasonable thing too to have separation. Like when you carry it in your car, there's some states, I don't know all of them, but I know there's some states where like the gun has to be in the trunk and the bullets have to be in the glove compartment or whatever. They have to be a unique separation, so there's no like spur of the moment you could there.
Do you remember what 2 or 3 kids got killed from lawn darts?
No.
Yeah, lawn darts. Back in the 70s or late 80s.
I know what they are.
Yeah, 2 or 3 kids got killed by lawn darts, so they outlawed them throughout the entire country. One guy goes through airport security and he's got a bomb in his shoe, and now we're millions of us every week
take our shoes off.
Per week take off our shoes. How many thousands of people? No. Tens of thousands of people are harmed by guns every year, whether they're killed or not. Something needs to be done. We would be better off literally without them. And we have other countries that can give us examples of how we can be better off literally without them. You're more likely to get killed by your own gun than you are to be killed by an intruder. So you're technically your own worst enemy. And then after years of hundreds of millions of weapons being sold, it's just, I guess we went there, didn't we?
Yeah, well, no, I think that, thoughtful conversations have to be on things that are hard subjects because they're hard subjects and they need to have debate. They need to have, communication. But like I said, to me, it's just reasonable in general. I do not buy this, let's do nothing. It's that is just unacceptable. I'd rather that, that there was nothing then, if that's what, but I'm fine with the rights as long as it comes from strict regulation. It's just
Yeah.
reasonable.
Well, what we ought to do is we ought to go, all right, you can have your guns, but they're going to be regulated. If you're not going to agree to regulation, no guns.
That's what I would say.
Regulation?
Lots of regulations. It's like I think there should be different classes. There kind of already is. Like different classes of guns. Like there's different classes of license for cars, right? You have one license, like, say hunting rifles, and then one for pistols, and then it has to be another one if you own, and we limit who can have these ones, but if you do, you have to pass through this. I feel that's only reasonable. We wouldn't let people go drive a vehicle, a big rig on the thing that only has a car license, and that makes sense.
That's right. You should not be able to own a bazooka if you're not registered to own a bazooka. When you own a bazooka, you shouldn't be allowed to own 5,000 rounds for a bazooka.
Yeah, just
these kind of things. It gets complicated. It's not simple. Anyway, I'm getting to where I need to.
All right, we can go. It's been great talking.
Yeah, well, not an emergency. It's just I got that other doctor's appointment. I got a doctor's appointment.
Yeah, no problem. Well, everyone, we're going to go ahead and close our video out, but could you go ahead and tell us again where to find you and a little info about you?
Absolutely, yeah. I am Chris Mallard, the Daily Atheist. You can find me on YouTube and Facebook as the Daily Atheist. Just give me a search, you'll find me. And then also you can find me on Twitter as Atheisting1. Atheisting and then the number 1. So, yeah, I do YouTube videos. And then, of course, I'm also doing History Voyagers with my buddy Damien here.
Yes.
So look for that.
You guys should check that out. All right. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.